Hello, Rob and
Hello.
Sarah. It's our first exclusive. I'm super excited.
I am too.
And there probably will be confetti to celebrate our first exclusive at some point in this demo. We have some friends joining, so that's good. So today, in our very first, is it inaugural? In
Inaugural.
our
Yeah.
very first exclusive, we're talking about PDFs and how you can track deeper insights and analytics and engagement with PDFs with XCL. We're going to be very informal and structure this like a conversation, although there will be a demo, which feels a little bit more formal. But just to kick off, I'm going to hand this over to Rob to talk a little bit about how XCL thinks about PDFs and why XCL is such a great tool if you need to track engagement with a PDF.
For sure. So thanks for that. So essentially, the problem that comes up over and over and over again with people with simple files like PDF or other document types, images, videos, is that tracking these documents for whatever reason can get very complicated and inevitably ends up being something that's encapsulated within some type of system. You can see who opened your PDF if you're using Smith X PDF viewer platform, whatever. But we wanted to find a way to harness the power of all these documents and harness the capture of their engagement data in the same format in the same place. So that's what Build Capable XCL is good for. And when we talk about PDFs, what do we want to know about a PDF is always the question. Well, what I want to know about a PDF may be very different from what you want to know, but I think we all want to know the same thing. Did someone open the PDF? Did someone read the pages of the PDF? What pages did they spend the most time on? Did they finish reading the PDF? And that goes for pretty much any kind of digital content that you create. We spend a lot of time creating digital content. Let's make sure that people are actually getting some value out of it. The types of content that a PDF can generally be used for is things like resources in an IoT training program. I'm going to send out some documents after the fact or during the experience that I want to make sure my learners are engaging with because I want to make sure that those things have value. And I'm not always going to get feedback from them that say, "Hey, I didn't like or I didn't find useful the PDF resource that I never opened." Like that's never going to be something that someone says, but I can get that from some data. Instructions for a product. When I've worked in product environments, oftentimes we wanted to reduce paper waste and not include instructions that, again, no one will ever read and will never know if they read them or not. But we can include a QR code, for example, on a packaging to ensure that instructions are available. And now we have a method to ensure that those instructions are being used. And we can craft better instructions, more succinct instructions, more useful documents. And of course, important memos and things like need to filter up through certain departments within a corporate environment. Definitely important to know that people are reading those memos ahead of meetings or reading research papers before speaking about them. So I'm going to show you today, very quickly, how we do that. So this is the Light and Magic Show.
I love the Light and Magic Show.
This is what it's all about. So I'm going to share this application window. I'm saying it out loud because I can't do two things at once. No one can. So essentially what we've got, and I'm hoping you're seeing the XCL interface right now. This is the Build Capable XCL. Welcome if you've never seen it before. Essentially, there's two things you can do in here, three things really, but there's brand templates. We're not going to talk about those today. I've set up a brand template. Those are the things, the structure that holds where your data is going, what your forms are going to look like. There's a little bit of branding opportunity there and what data you're going to collect about each person that's using a piece of content. And then there's the learning links. So these are the things we're going to focus on today. We'll drive down this hole. And all we're going to do is set up a new learning link. And we're going to target a PDF for our learning link. So let's call it PDF learning. And it doesn't have to be learning, but it needs to be something. So I'm just going to name it PDF learning. We're going to pick one of our brand templates. There's only one in the system right now. It's this funny named thing. Customize. This is what our form is going to look like when our users use the content. This is a landing page that comes in front of the content where the user is going to fill out some information about themselves. And then, of course, there's other information that we can modify for this link only. Instructional text on how to use the form, what the launch button is going to say. This could say go or launch PDF or read now. or get instructions, whatever you want. And then, of course, some other bits of information. Move next. This screen is where I actually add the PDF. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the window popping up, but I've basically just chosen a PDF, dropped it in. It's drag and drop or choose from your file system. You can also link to the PDF, but essentially I'm just going to upload it for this example and publish. One, two, confetti, and it's done. Now we
Good.
have a link. The link lives in real life. I can copy and paste this link and put it anywhere I'd like. I can distribute, a couple examples of that would be I can distribute this by email. I can put this link nicely formatted on a SharePoint site or any intranet site, any WordPress site. The list goes on. If an LMS has the ability, if your LMS has the ability to host a link, this can go there too and track from the LMS and in the Build Capable XCL. Again, you'll see that there's a QR code. I can download this QR code, put it on a piece of packaging, a bus stop, a sticker, stick it to things. I can do whatever I want with this. I can put it in a presentation for a trade show or a conference. I can do whatever I'd like. And this content will always link to the same link. And that link looks like this. Essentially, I have a small form that I customize. I can customize the background color, the logo, all the content and text, including if I wanted to do this in another language, I could do right to left. I could do all the characters of all the alphabets and all the glyphs that you can imagine. It's very flexible. And then, of course, there's the pieces of data that I've requested. In this case, I want to collect first name, last name, and email address. When I continue on, my PDF will render as any PDF would ever render on the internet, and I can go through it as I want, as I wish. This is the user experience. There's nothing special. There's no clunky tools. There's no ridiculous attestation at the end. But when I've completed my mission, I can return or I can simply close the link. And then as an administrator of this system, I can view analytics. So in this set of analytics, I'm viewing an activity stream that's showing me everything that happened with this person. So just a test user, let's see where they begin. Just a test user launched, viewed. This is each page of the document that's been viewed. I can really drill down and check out some deeper information. And of course, machines can read this a lot better than we can, but I can set up reports where I can see what pages out of the total number of pages. I can see total time that it took to complete the actual reading of the entire document, essentially getting to the last page. And I can see deltas page to page of how long people were spending on each page. And then I know that in this case, this person actually exited. This is information that you probably don't need, but it's there. We're collecting more than we're ever going to need. And with this query tool, I can query specific information. I can query specific events. I can query all the completeds, see how many people, or I can check from specific dates to see who's done what. And of course, if this is too complex for me, I can always see a very simple dashboard that shows me, hey, this PDF was launched X number of times. It was completed X number of times, and here are the people that were interacting with it. And that can be important information if you needed that. And I think that's all there is to know about PDFs, but maybe I'm wrong. There could be questions.
So anything that I have a company, for those of you who don't know, and anything that's a PDF that my employees need to look at isn't necessarily training, but it's policy or something human resources related. And usually I require them to sign it as an indication that they've done it. Does this support tracking whether or not somebody has signed a document using like DocuSign or something?
This particular tool in this use case does not track necessarily whether someone digitally signed a document. But that is an interesting use case that we've also thought of. And creating a link to a document signing application would give you the power to see whether they signed it or not. This is more so engagement at this time. So not a no, but a coming soon, perhaps.
And for that particular use case, so I had the same thought, Jen, that there's a lot of policies and requirements now of signing or engaging in some way to say, oh, I read this thing or I opened this thing or whatever people have to say that they did. Because we can track what people actually did in the document, I wonder how many of those use cases. Now, in some cases, you're still going to want them to sign, but I wonder how many of those use cases you could say, oh, I saw that they scrolled through and just signed it, but they never read it, and triangulate a little bit in terms of the amount of insight and data that you can see in a document.
Yeah, and so the flip side of that is also true, right? So theoretically, if I saw that they read it, they shouldn't have to sign it because I
Right.
have evidence that they read it. But most of these things are from a legal protection perspective. I actually need their signature on it. They
Yeah.
need to not just read it, but agree to it.
Yeah.
So there's that. But that would actually be very helpful if there's a way to track across the organization various things that were signed or interacted with. Also with PDFs, there's like changes you can make to them. And if there was a way to know that somebody had messed with a PDF, edited it, that would be useful, just so, again, from like a legal protection perspective.
Absolutely. In our, just to answer the question of editing, controlling the actual source of the PDF is something that you have the power of. So the original PDF can't be changed. However, there is annotation that's possible. So someone could add annotation. And this annotation becomes powerful because we could potentially, in our next version, track what these annotations actually say, which could give your users the power to give inline feedback in the same data storage format as the engagement metrics, which would be very powerful. In this particular case, we control the player, and this player does not allow us to actually change the PDF itself from its source.
When you add an annotation, it's only for you, right?
Right. So this annotation is only for me. I'm the only one who will ever see this, but I could capture this in, let's see, there we go. This annotation can be captured in the same data format so that although this annotation was only for me, as the administrator of the document, I can see what people annotated. So if I ask people, hey, annotate changes that you would perceive or identify areas in this document that were confusing or whatnot and so forth.
If you go away from that and come back to it, does it keep all your changes for you?
Don't believe so. They are gone.
Okay. So to keep your annotations, you would want to print this or download it?
You could print and download, and all of those things are tracked. So as I print this and download it, the administrator will know those are all data points that are captured in the activity stream. So those can be filtered out. If there was an instruction to print it, you would know who actually followed that instruction.
If, to Jen's point, if you wanted to capture a signature, you could have an annotation signature. You could capture that in the data as an XAPI statement.
You could.
So you could capture that data in the activity stream, and then you would know.
You could.
If you wanted to do it
absolutely
that
could.
way. I don't know how, because this is not a signing tool, I don't know if that was my use case. I don't know that I would be using like a job aid learning tool to do it.
Yeah.
But that's a really good question as
I
far as
think
Yeah,
it also depends on the use case. If you have if this is a compliance or a legal signature document that you need to be able to report on, this probably isn't the best way to do that. If you just want acknowledgement that someone read the directions and signed the document and that's part of the engagement data that you want to track, then this could totally work. As long as you didn't have to do the compliance reporting on it, I would be hesitant yet to say we could track signatures that would count for kind of legal compliance stuff. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about learning use cases that obviously there's lots of organizations that are delivering content through PDFs and right now have pretty limited data that they can report on from their PDF content. And one of the things that I'm really excited about from a learning perspective is being able to understand how people are engaging with PDF content and documents. There's lots of use cases. I would say there's internal learning, but we also have customer education, partner education, product education, things where you're delivering learning to large audiences that aren't directly related to an internal employee training program. How could this work in a environment where you have a large audience of folks that you may not necessarily know? I'm leading the witness here. In terms of being able to track and see how people are engaging with your content that you're spreading out to these large audiences.
So yeah, so there's numerous different kind of dimensions that we can put on those types of situations. The first is Build Capable XCL produces a link. We don't need a student login. We don't need any of those things. You can deliver that link at scale on the internet through social media, however you'd like to deliver it. And you have essentially an unlimited audience of the entire internet that can access that particular link. So the benefit of that is it's the one to many. The many can be almost an infinite number. Also, you can control what types of data you want to collect. If it's not important to you to know the individuals, but rather the engagement of the document on a whole, you can anonymize that access. And you can still see, to some degree, the number of unique users, even if they view it more than once. You can see the same metrics, just without a human name or email address. You can also collect different types of information like region. So if you wanted to collect region instead of personally identifiable information, you would know how many people, for example, were in a particular region viewing this document. So it gives you a lot of options. Again, Build Capable XCL has no real opinion of how it gets used. It's a tool to be used in any way that you want, and the flexibility it gives you the options to craft that use case that you need to capture the data through a lens that you want to.
So let's say I just have some marketing content that I want to share out and I want to see who engaged with it, how many folks, and what they focused on in the PDF. That's information that this could do for me.
Absolutely. So to extend the model of existing marketing platforms that would capture clicks and opens of an email that you sent to a prospective client or group of prospective clients. In this case, you could tell specifically to the individual who opened that piece of information, who spent time reading it. Those could set up your target list for priority in follow-up.
I'm gonna regret putting this out in the world because now every content marketing, every sales email I get now is going to be able to track whether I read their content or not. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about from a PDF perspective, and this is, I think, from a product perspective, is when we build software products, we are obviously tracking the usage and engagement and what buttons people are clicking and where they go within a website or where they go within our software tool. What this allows you to do is now get that type of data for a PDF. And how we use that on the product side is to make our products better, to understand how people are using them. So talk a little bit about like how you could use this data to improve your content.
Yeah, for sure. Great point. So one of the things I've said is a very bold statement and probably not entirely true, but this is somewhat like a Google Analytics for a document. The difference, major difference being in Google Analytics, you set up your tags and your targets ahead of time. In this case, we collect all the data and you can filter it later to get the insight that you wanted. So in the case of a PDF, if this PDF was something like a memo delivered before an important meeting or before a conference, I could determine who spent what time in the document in what areas, which might help me understand what parts of the document were more important than others. And maybe the intro is a little bit too long, as I thought it was, because that was bypassed very quickly and no one ever read it. Or the executive summary became the most important page and people spent their time and their energy on that versus the entire document. In fact, this could be more efficient if it was just a couple graphs and an executive summary. So this is the ways that we can use this data to craft better, more succinct, more efficient content, and also at the same time see who's engaging with the content in what ways. Once annotation is a consideration, asking my audience to annotate the document, I can crowdsource feedback very quickly, very efficiently, sift through it at my will. In fact, I could probably train an AI to sift through it and rewrite the document for me at some point, but I might be talking about a black sky that we haven't come to
Yeah, it's probably next week.
yet. Yeah.
So my last question, and I know we're running up on the end of the half an hour. You showed all the data that can be tracked as you were going through the PDF, and you showed how you could query that data to ask questions. If I have existing BI tools or existing reporting capabilities, is it possible to bring this data into my existing reporting tools to be able to aggregate all of the data and slice and dice it in the way that I want?
Absolutely. So yeah, we haven't cut your wings there. By all means, you can download CSV of all the data you can see here plus some. So some of the data that's actually encapsulated in the actual XAPI statement is produced in the CSV file format. You can download this. You can include all the records, a subset of the records. If you do a query, it's only going to download what is visible in that query. And you can move that data between any of the data visualization softwares that you want to use. Your choices are abundant. And also, you can download raw statements if you'd like to just learn about the statements. If you're a developer trying to figure out if your statements are clean or if they're collecting the data that you want in the format that you want, you can do that. This is also helpful if you wanted to move these statements, these XAPI statements, to another XAPI enabled tool or another LRS. By all means, that's yours. Again, Build Capable XCL, extremely flexible. And we have no opinion on how this needs to be used. It's more of a tool in the middle that lets you get jobs done without any friction.
I'm going to quote you on that. It's a tool in the middle that lets you get jobs done without any friction. That is very good. Thanks for entertaining my leading questions, Rob. Sarah, Jen, did you have anything else you wanted to ask or add?
Yeah, I think this has been very insightful. Thank you.
I'm just glad that we have a way to do this now that is not so time intensive because tracking PDFs is not new, but it's not ever been easy in the past unless you built manually your own structure to do that or you had some kind of capability in a platform to do it. There are obviously other tools that you can use to track PDFs and things like that, but or other platforms, but they're all locked in to that system, right? In that data structure. And so if you want to unlock it and be able to use these data in different ways and point this data wherever you want, this is a much better option. And so I think what I appreciate about this tool for our work is that flexibility.
Awesome. So, thank you everyone for joining. We are going to do these conversations every Thursday. So please join us every Thursday. We're going to jump on here, not formal. If you are watching this video after, feel free to send us a note, ideas, suggestions. We're definitely in the early stages of getting feedback from folks that are using and thinking about using XCL. So feel free to reach out anytime. And thanks, everyone. That's a wrap.